This is Access Ann Arbor.
Good evening. My name is Gary Gatien. Our topic tonight is public address announcing, and our guest is Michael Gatien. Michael has volunteered to shed light on his experiences PA announcing and offer his advice and insights into PA announcing generally. Good evening, Michael. Nice of you to be here.
Well, thank you, Dad. It's great to be here. It's my pleasure.
Let's start off with what, in your opinion, is PA announcing, to give folks a little background.
Well, PA, or public address announcing, is announcing at a live stadium or field outside. That's arena or field. That it's basically announcing all the game information you would hear, like such as goals or touchdowns or whatever it may be, to the fans in the stands and to the players and the coaches and officials on the field. So basically, when you're a PA announcer, you're announcing to not just people on the field, but to the fans in the stands as well.
Right, but the PA announcer is different than a stadium announcer in that the one broadcast to a televised audience?
Correct. Public addresses over the stadium speakers.
Okay.
Radio or TV is obviously what we're doing now, television or radio on over the airwaves.
Okay. All right, very good. What inspired you to get interested in PA announcing and take it up?
What actually inspired me was, it was actually a person. So who inspired me was Carl Grapentine, who is the current public address announcer of Michigan football. He also does the Michigan marching band. And he inspired me because I loved his voice, the way he said the players' names, and just...
Can you give an example of the way he announced things that
yes,
kind of got you excited and happy to get into it?
I would absolutely be tickled to do it. So here's a brief sample of how Carl would say the Michigan marching band.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Michigan marching band. Band, take the field.
And then everyone cheers, right?
Yes. And of course he'll say his, ladies and gentlemen, the game time is in 1 hour. 1 hour to kickoff. And everyone says thank you. And
thank you, Mike.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
When you began announcing, what sport did you begin with?
Well, at Pioneer High School, I announced basketball. That was in the winter. Then I did baseball in 2008 to the varsity season under Coach Jerry Holly. And
okay. Then in the spring, did you go outdoors?
Yes, I did. I mean, I was in the press box at Holloway Field, but you mean in terms of what game was played?
What sports? Yes.
Sure. I did soccer, girls and boys, JV, and varsity soccer. Varsity, I did all varsity sports as a fill-in for our announcer, which I'll mention later in the broadcast.
All right.
I've done lacrosse, soccer. I did a little football, field hockey, softball. So I'm very versatile.
Okay. Did you also announce at a swimming event one time?
I have, and that was actually the most fun. At first, I wasn't sure how to do it, but their coach, I did at Skyline High School for their swimming and diving team. I forget the diving announcer or coach, Matt Ventura. He's now doing something else, but the current swim coach, her name is Maureen Isaac, who's ironically also the athletic secretary to our athletic director, Eve Claire, at Pioneer High School. So Maureen Isaac, I got to announce her swim meet for Skyline, and I really had a fun time with that.
Okay. Are there any sports that you haven't announced but really would like to?
I would really love to announce or do public address announcing for the horse racing.
Horse racing, really?
Yes.
What excites you about horse racing?
Well, I like to get them pumped up. I want to get the fans, pumped up, and I've always loved horses. I've been to Mackinac Island. I've ridden them, so I have a little experience of being around horses. Like, of course, Uncle Lionel.
Your uncle?
Yes.
Okay.
My Uncle Lionel was a horse breeder, and so when we went down to Florida at that time, if you remember, we were around horses. So.
Right.
And
yeah, he also raced horses, didn't he?
I didn't remember that.
He did.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's fine.
And one big thing I want to mention is, take a quick break. The quick thing I want to mention is that I've actually loved one of the horse racing track callers, is what they're called, and his name is Tom Durkins. Now, the reason I like Tom Durkins so much is he, first of all, he actually announced with the New York Racing Association, or whatever it's called, and did Saratoga and Aqueduct and all those racetracks. And what I like about him the most is actually the way he calls them. And he actually had a few funny calls. One that sticks out the most is he had a tongue twister horse name, which was Yaka Hika Mikadola.
Well, it sounds like you've memorized it anyway.
Oh,
finally,
yes. Yaka Hika Mikadola. And he was so tongue-tied, it came out very funny.
Are there some local announcers that you've worked with and would like to mention?
Yes, I've actually worked with our announcer for I didn't work with him Carl Gravenstein. I met Carl when I was at work at Michigan Stadium. I've I haven't really met a lot of announcers that I've worked with, but I've met announcers that I've seen do their job.
Okay.
Like one of them was, his name strikes me, but
oh, it's okay.
he is an announcer, one of the announcers for my friend's speed skating tournament.
Okay.
And
who's the announcer at Pioneer that you've worked with some?
Oh, I'm sorry, John Turk.
Oh, okay.
John Turk, he does the varsity sports. He does varsity soccer, field hockey, and football.
Okay.
And basketball.
So you've got around a little bit.
Yeah.
Got to meet a few of the local folks and a few statewide, at least, like the Tigers and things like that.
Yes.
Announcer for the Tigers. Oh, that's great.
Oh, and by the way, for the speed skating announcer that I've seen, his first name is Jamie. I can't remember his last name. So.
Okay.
He was very good at what he does.
What do you most like about some of their announcing? I mean, is there a way they announce it? Is it slow, fast, high, low?
Well, I like how they call each play or whatever. I like the voice. Like you have to be have a clear booming voice. So.
Okay. Good. You obviously have that.
Yes, I do.
That was good.
Well, thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know you've announced both indoor and outdoor sports, or helped with announcing them. Can you tell us some of the typical things you do to sort of prepare and to announce at an event? Do you set up microphones, or what are the kinds of things you do?
I'd be happy to elaborate on that. Basically, I'm an early bird, so I get to when it comes to Pioneer or any place, I get there a little early. Maybe sometimes 2 hours early, and I sometimes help set up the field, and that's not really part of the PA announcing.
Right.
But, I do set up the microphones. I go through the rosters. I'll go to the team, opposing team. Once you're with Pioneer, you know their players' pronunciations named. For every opposing team, I'll go to the coach or the players itself, get their correct pronunciations. Last thing I want to do is, one of the mistakes I want to do is announce someone's name completely wrong or something.
Okay.
And if I get them wrong, they say just do your best. So that's what I do. And then I set up the microphones, like I said, and make sure they are working properly. I do an audio check 1, 2. If I hear my voice echoing back, or if I hear the PA speakers that are on, I know that they're working correctly. And
okay. Are there certain types of equipment you like? I know there's some microphones. You've gone through several microphones of your own, so I know that you have some background in that. So are there certain ones that you think work better in an open field or closed arena, or
like basically
just which ones you like the best?
Okay, well, I guess this is where I can mention the type of microphones.
Yes.
One of the microphones that the top microphone that they use for public address announcing use is a studio microphone. It's called the Electro Voice RE20 or EV RE20 or the SM by Shure SM7B or the Shure SM58. The SM58 is most popular, but RE20 is like number 2, and number 3 most popular would be the
Electro Voice.
What? Okay.
That's okay.
The SM7B by Shure, the Shure SM58, and the Electro Voice RE20. Those are the most popular mics for public address use.
Okay. Do you have a favorite venue? I mean, do you like an outdoor or an indoor or a large one or small?
Well, I like to actually hear my own voice at different venues. So in an arena, it will sound differently than if you were at an outdoor field.
Sure.
So technically what I like more would be like outdoors.
Okay.
Because with indoors, you get a ton of reverberation and distortion, and it sounds horrible. Like for example, I went at the Anna Ice Cube. I've announced there, and one time my voice is so distorted, they literally couldn't understand what I was saying.
Okay, so there are disadvantages to some mics and venues and combinations.
The speakers over at Holloway Field for Pioneer have been upgraded in the past few years, but before they were absolutely distorted, and you couldn't even tell what they were almost saying.
Well, I'm glad that they got those fixed, and I can tell you appreciate it.
So basically, I like outdoor sports.
Okay.
More.
Can you tell me one other thing about mics? Do you prefer, while you're announcing and you have a roster and maybe you have players' names or something, is it easier if you have a handheld mic or a corded mic or a wireless headset? I mean, do you have a preference for different venues, or is there one that you just really love and works well all the time?
Yes. I can be happy to talk about that. What I actually like more would be the headset. You know, you literally, it just goes around your ears or your head. And if you don't want it over your neck or something, I was just going to reverse that. If you don't want it over your head, you could put that over your neck and have the boom mic pointed up towards your mouth. I've seen actually one of the person that does that is actually a former PA announcer for a minor league baseball team. Her name was Jennifer Swan-Shera. She did the public address announcing for a little while of the Lansing Lugnuts, and she had the mic. I guess she didn't know how to do it over her ear, so she just wanted to put it over her neck, and had the boom facing up, and she could talk that way, and that's what I like.
So is that a wired one or a wireless one?
I imagine it had a cord, so.
Yeah, okay, so it's wired.
Well, wired headset.
Okay, all right. Do you have any tips for someone who might be beginning to do some PA announcing? You know, how did you start, or is there certain way?
Any tips for the beginner?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? As if you want to be a public address announcer, you gotta have a good attitude. You're gonna have to be serious, of course, because you're announcing an actual game. But you know, a little humor never hurt anyone, and I try to do some humor stuff with my announcing, which people actually love. You want to, stay hydrated, which reminds me.
Seems appropriate.
And, because obviously you're going to be announcing for a while, and you're going to get hoarse after a while. So you want to sound like this. You don't want to start sounding like, "Good afternoon, welcome to Comerica Park for today's game between the Tigers and the Red Sox." And so you want to you don't want to ever sound like that.
I know, it sounds like it could be quite entertaining after a while.
I can't.
No, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
The more you do it, the more annoyed the fans are going to get. So if you sound like that, you don't want to go into work. You want to stay home.
I understand. Okay. In broadcasting generally, in announcing, anytime you're in front of an audience, people can make mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It happens.
Yes.
So everyone makes mistakes.
True.
The thing about announcing, the PA announcing, is that you make them in front of a whole lot of people. It's not just you and a friend when you miss saying some word, misspeak a word. So can you tell us about any embarrassing or interesting or funny moments that you've had
I'll
where
mention
you've
two. I'll
made a
mention
couple.
two. One funny, one not so funny.
Okay.
I'll start with the not so funny one. It was basically simple. I just had a nosebleed on the job,
Ouch.
and I'll actually mention this nosebleed. I was actually at a basketball game, and it was like announcing the first quarter or something. It was like literally in the middle of the first quarter, and I started feeling the blood. I just sniffed for some reason. I felt the blood start dripping down.
Okay, let's not do in too many details for the sake of this audience.
Okay, I'm sorry if I'm grossing anyone out.
Okay.
It was just pretty terrifying to me to have all this nose bleeding on the job. So I literally had to say, "Please excuse me, I just need to go to the restroom. I'll be right back to take care of my nose." They come back. I go to the nurse or trainer. They give me some gauze for my nose, and after about 15, 20 minutes, it's fine. I take out the gauze. There's no bleeding, and I can continue the rest of the game. But that was not so funny. So
if it makes you feel any better, years ago there was a broadcaster named Carmen Harlan who did Channel 4 News in Detroit.
Of course, yeah, and she did
She has allergies, and one of the first times she was on
she got a
Channel
nosebleed.
4, she got an allergic reaction. And she was in the middle of a Detroit
nosebleed
broadcast.
or just like a
just an allergic
anaphylactic
reaction.
shock?
Not that bad, but yeah, a reaction. And she ended up having to get up in front of the TV camera and say, "Excuse me," and leave the room.
Oh, well,
And then she came back in a few minutes later. But
she felt
that's
fine then.
that's an example of something happens with
Oh.
a very large audience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and
you're good.
one thing I want to mention that's pretty funny is actually my doing. I was actually announcing at a women's basketball game, and my phone charger was underneath the scoring table, or scorer's table, that's what they call it. And I was announcing then, and I tried during a timeout or something to just, do my, fix my phone or see if it's charging or, whatever. So what do I do? But where's my phone? Underneath the scoring table, but next to the power strip to the scoring table. So I accidentally put my finger on the turn off the power strip, which kills power to the scoreboards. And a few minutes ago, a few seconds later, they completely go black. And I said, "Oh, Wendy, we have a problem. The scoreboards are out." And I think I accidentally hit the power strip, and it says, "Oh," and then they're going, "Time out, please." And so they blew the whistle, and it wasn't a big deal, but it was kind of funny. They had to reset the scoreboards, and I felt a little embarrassed.
Yeah.
But I learned not to mess with anything else but announcing.
I'll bet. Yeah, I bet you were very popular that evening.
Oh, yes, I was so popular, Dad.
Do you know, or do you have things that you enjoy particularly about announcing, and then also are there certain things, other than making those kinds of mistakes in front of lots of people, that you would see maybe as drawbacks or limitations or something to announcing as?
Yes. Besides making mistakes, one of the other drawbacks of any announcing, let alone PA announcing, is that the mics could break, or you could have them dropped and not work anymore, or if not work at all, this not work properly, and there's other technical issues with any announcing.
So you have a lot of things that can go wrong, as opposed to if you're standing up and giving a speech or something.
Oh, sure, and like I said, I think this is one of my questions, but one of my questions, or one of the things I would not do if a mic announced, if a mic, decide to break or not work properly, would be to scream out the window of the press box. That would not be professional.
Probably
so
not.
if there's no
better ways.
If there's no way to announce with a mic, then I do not announce.
Right.
That's what Eve actually says. Eve Claire, athletic director at Pioneer. She says, "Michael, if you can't get any mic working, don't announce. You do not announce, because it's unprofessional to scream through a megaphone or use my voice out the press box."
What about things that you especially enjoy about it? I mean, what do you really get a kick out of doing?
Well, the reason I love public address announcing so much is, besides hearing my own voice over the PA speakers,
Fair enough.
I love giving back to the team. A team that doesn't have a public address announcer, I'm always reaching out and asking, "Hey, would you like a PA announcer? Hey, would you like an announcer for your event?" Sometimes they cannot pay me, so they'll say no. But other times they just say, well, we don't need one. So I'm reaching out to people that don't have one. And if they do, then great. I'd say I'd love to volunteer my public address services and see what we could work out.
Yeah. Well, you've done some things for charities in the area.
Sure,
or
the
nonprofits.
Yaks. Arbor Yaks. I'd like to also mention a shout out to Louis Fulcher. Hey, Louis. Hope you're watching this. And
Okay.
I'm
they
sure
are
you're
what?
not, but just in case you are.
They are what? What are
They are the Ann Arbor Adult League Hockey at the based off the Ann Arbor Ice Cube.
Okay.
I've done a lot of their games. I'm going to do their charity game on April 30th. I believe it's 1 o'clock. I believe it's 1 o'clock. So if you want to come out to the Ann Arbor Ice Cube, please do. I'll be announcing. And then Brian O'Neill, who does this, I'll be doing the first game. Brian O'Neill will do the second game, as well as Chuck-a-Puck, where you throw your pucks onto the ice, near center ice, and try to get a point. And whoever's closest to the ice will actually get that. So during, he'll announce Chuck-a-Puck, and I'll do some of the raffles for the second game and stuff like that at the end of the game.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
So it's a.
and I've done some games at Yost Ice Arena for Michigan Senior Women's Hockey League and other sports.
So is it fair to say you've developed some camaraderie with people, maybe people you wouldn't have known before or met before? So, you know,
I need to get out my definition book. What is
I'm
camaraderie?
sorry. Friendships.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
People love me, and they love what I do. And
So a PA announcer could be looked at as maybe an auxiliary team member or something like that. Somebody at least keep
Sure.
your spirits up. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they are not. I have to repeat. Actually, learning this in the book. They are not cheerleaders. So even though you can get energetic for let's say for baseball, if you're saying like third baseman number 24, Ben Zobrist, and instead of saying that, you could also say a little bit of energy, like if they were the home team, you could say like third baseman Ben Zobrist, or you don't want to like string it out long, but a little bit more excitement than you would do if you were at a home event. You would hear the announcer say like in the top of the beginning, a little bit less excitement.
Okay.
So yeah,
Would you say that going to different fields and hearing different announcers is a good thing to do if you're
absolutely,
interested
you
in
get to pick up skills that you haven't done before.
What are some of the places that you've been where you've heard announcing,
I've
whether
been-
in town or outside the city or whatever?
Actually, I've been to different ballparks, including Cooley Law School Stadium for the Lansing Lugnuts. We went to the Lugnuts game with. You could hear Jennifer Swanshira there at the time talking like my favorite player was like now batting the first baseman Jason Leblegian. Leblegian. I would never forget that name.
Okay.
And so.
When
Other sports, I've heard of Ford Field, and I've been to Spartan Stadium. Sadly to say, my neighbor Louis Fulcher is.
We'll allow it.
My neighbor Louis Fulcher is a Buckeye fan. He's from Ohio State, so we went to the Ohio State-Michigan State game. Terry Braverman is their public address announcer at Ford Field as well as Spartan Stadium, and I will do a very brief imitation of like, third down, 15 to go for your Spartans.
Very good.
Or like first down, Spartans. So
Okay. Now, recently, this last summer, you were at Washington, D.C., weren't you?
yes, and I heard like Jerome Haruska is the public address announcer there for the Nationals. And a brief example would be like, ladies and gentlemen, your 2017 Washington Nationals. He strings it out.
Boy, he gets excited, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And let's see.
We had Max Scherzer on the team, who from the former Tigers pitcher.
Right.
So we got to hear him call that.
Right. And there were we went down to Toledo.
Oh yes, the Mud Hens.
Right.
And again the example of each team, if we have time. The Mud Hens go like, ladies and gentlemen, your 2014 or 2015, let's say, your world famous Toledo Mud Hens.
Okay.
The announcer there is Anthony Bellino, along with Kevin Mullen. Mullen does the park PA announcing for basically the whole park, but Anthony Bellino is the on-field MC.
Okay,
Anthony
and
Bellino is currently the Michigan basketball public address announcer, filling in for another guy, I forget his name. And that guy that I forgot his name, he also does the Detroit Tigers, but Anthony Bellino has not done the Tigers yet.
Oh, okay. And there were a couple, just to wind up with a couple there, were the Chicago White Sox and Chicago.
Oh yes,
and-
Gene Honda,
and
where he goes
Chicago
like,
Cubs.
I don't know about I think the Cubs announcer is Andrew Bellison, but Gene Honda is also a versatile announcer. He does DePaul University, the NCAA Frozen Four, NCAA Final Four, the White Sox, the Blackhawks. For an announcer sample, they go like, I'll pick the White Sox.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, your 2017 Chicago White Sox.
Very good.
Or something yeah. So he's very good at that.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, Mike, in conclusion, is there anything else you'd like to add about announcing, or?
Just if you want to be a public address announcer, or let alone do any career, just have an open mind and have a good attitude, and you can possibly obtain any dream that you have.
Well, Mike, that is terrific. Very good. Okay. I think we could wrap up now.
Okay.
And I'd like to thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your time,
offering
Dad.
your advice.
It was my pleasure being here.
You tell us about your exploits a little bit and about some of the things that you encountered.
No problem.
Okay. And
I'd love to do this again someday.
well, thank you very much, and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
And
I got to do some samples. And
yeah, that's right. And I'd like to thank the television station and
well,
crew,
thank you. I
everyone for
appreciate
helping out.
CTN for helping me set this up.
That's great. Thank you, Mike.
No problem. Thanks to Alicia and Melissa Bondi.
Okay, very good.